So the magic sheet that I gave you guys, did everybody get one? Did we have extra? Any extras? Yeah, that one there. So I don't have one to show you guys. But the idea is that all of the channels, we talked about how channels are names. Like they're how we as a designer want to organize all these lights over our head. Rather than having them be the random numbers they end up being plugged into, if you look at your magic sheet, you can see that each square has a purpose, what we call a purpose in it. So like the first one on the upper left-hand side says front. And again, we talked last week about the angles of light, right? So the front light is coming from where? It's coming from out there. So if I'm the actor, the front light's coming at my face, right? So you can see that those channel numbers are 1 through 9. Where does channel 1 hit?
Channel 1?
Yeah, tell me where to stand if I'm going to be in channel 1 when you bring that light up.
In front.
That one, but where would I be standing? Downstage right. Again, remember those stage directions are from the actor's perspective when they're facing the audience. Not when I'm facing this way, not when I'm facing upstage, but when I'm facing you as the audience. So channel 1's here, right? Where's channel 2? Down center. Where's channel 3? Down left. So can you see how, like, Ian, I think this is mostly Ian's channeling. I am going to take these back from you guys today because he's going to reorganize a few channels, and I want you to have the correct paperwork for the final project. But this magic sheet is pretty much what you're going to be looking at for the final project. So you know that if you want to bring up the light that hits here, that's a front light, you're bringing up what channel? 3. Okay, let's say you want to bring up a blue downlight that's, say, maybe right here-ish. You look at the magic sheet and tell which... What is it? 56. So basically, that gives you a rough pictorial representation of where those lights hit, roughly. If I'm standing, like, right here, I might be, say, between 2 areas. So it gets a little tough. You might have to, if an actor is standing right here, you'd have to bring up both areas to be able to blend and light this correctly. Otherwise, you get a little bit of a light fall off in between. But that's the gist. We've kind of broken up the stage into, for the most part, 6 areas. You can see that there's a few towards the bottom, like you can see the gobos and some of the washes, like they call red wash, blue wash. The idea there is that we're hitting almost, a wash is a, kind of what it sounds like, a wash of light that hits most of the stage. The first few sections that we're looking at the top of that are more area lights. We have more areas to choose from and more control to be able to push and pull what we're looking at on the stage. Whereas the washes tend to be bright colors, things that we just want to hit everything around. We don't necessarily need control of visibility. We're just trying to get a nice wash of color or gobos or something like that. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. Do you have a question?
So, I do. I'm sorry if this is not the right moment or whatever. But so these washes would be like using kind of filter or something on the light?
There's a filter. So basically when it says red wash, you can see in the left-hand corner of each square there is a designation, like the red wash says R26. That is the gel color that is causing the red. So you put a color filter in front of the light that makes it red, and then you have the red wash. So you're putting the R26 in the light, and you get the red wash there. No, great question. So that's the idea with that. So, and the reason we know we have all these lights hitting these areas is because we've done, of course, the big thing. All of these are dependent on doing a light plot and a section. Okay. Now a light plot is basically a drawing of this space that shows the grid and all the lights hanging on it and where we want them to be. I kind of wanted to show you guys some pictures to get that started. But in this space, I have a couple of examples. For instance, some of these are hand-drawn. But the idea is you kind of start with a drawing of the theater. Remember, we had all that lovely vocab like center line, etc., etc. So this is a drawing of just the main stage with the electric spattens on it. Just a bare hand-drawn drawing. Very simple. Center line is drawn up the center of it. And then you've got the indication of the pipe. So that's what you get to start with as a lighting designer. You're drawing like that. And then you've got to figure out where the lights go on that. Let me see if I have a little section. So a section is usually taken as if, okay, here's another hand drawing of it. As if you've taken a slice right where that center line is, and you're looking at what the building is like from that halfway through section that we call it. It's like a side view of the theater. So if I was to do a section of our little theater here, it's like I take a slice from halfway down, and we end up with this sort of rectangular box. So up here would be the pipes that we hang on, right? Up at the top of the box. And let's say I'm drawing you guys as an audience section here. So there would be some risers over here at one end. And then I would need to know what the height from my stage floor to my ceiling is. So I want to know that height. That's what a section is useful for. So in here it's super simple because we have one grid height and we have one deck height, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say we built a fancy stage with a big platform right here. Then when we go to do, say, like our backlight, we've got to know, you know, how big does that light need to be? If I have a person standing on that, how big does that light need to be to hit that whole person? You know, to give like a nice big backlight. And how much am I going to hit those audience members in the eye? So part of what you're looking at when you're looking at a section, that side view of the theater, is you're looking at what's my height, and how big do my lights need to be to cover what I want. Do they want to be super big so I can hit like one light and light the whole stage? How big does that light need to be? Or, if I want to be able to control different things in different areas, how many areas do I want to break that stage up into? Do I want to break this stage up into 3 areas, or I could break it up into 5? I, personally, as a lighting designer, I usually like odd numbers of areas. Let me tell you why. Because the most important place is usually down center for an actor. So if I have 4 areas across, remember how we talked about having 2 areas? So if they're standing here right dead center and you've got 4 areas, you have to bring up both and you have this wide area, and it's not really focused specifically on them. But down center tends to be the most powerful place to focus on, as far as directing, as far as acting. Usually if you're giving a monologue, that's where you're standing, unless there's another powerful place on stage that's been created for you to give a monologue from. That's where it gives the most impact to the audience. Yeah?
Would the section normally be on the center line, or could it be to the left or right?
It can be different places. Normally you'll default to center line and slicing the theater down that center line. However, if you have a very specific odd-shaped theater, you might have to do multiple sections. If you have an odd set, you're going to have to section that theater in different ways, and you're going to have to take your ground plan and go, oh, well, I need to do a section on a diagonal because they have this weird platform that's totally in my way, and then these things that fly in, but they're not flying in across stage from stage right to stage left. So you have to kind of know what your obstacles are, and then you might have to section accordingly. So your scenic design or your theater space or your performance space can change how much you're sectioning things. Does that make sense? So yeah, but normally if it's a fairly simple set, I just have to do one section from the center line section. If you're in the main stage, then it's not quite such a simple box, right? You get something that has those, we have all those catwalks up in the air. So like there's a catwalk and they might change levels or whatever. And so you have to look at like those, let's say the stage is over here. You have to look at those lighting angles from the different catwalks and how big you want those lights shining on your stage. So you're looking at the angle of the light, the field angle or the beam angle is what we're talking about when we're talking about that beam spread going towards stage